first one I ever recorded or didn't record. First interview I ever had, I realized I didn't hit record halfway through. So I guess it's good to learn early.
Do you mind when we're done this? Do you mind sending me the recording? Because what I'm doing is clipping some podcasts. And I'm gonna start using it for some social media, just posts and stuff like that. So
yeah, dude, of course. Okay, and then cool. When we're about to launch, I'll also send you an email that has some of the stuff we clip too. So feel free to repurpose that as well. But I'll send you this too.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. And I usually just jump into it and record the intro after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll follow your lead. Just whatever I can do. Just yeah.
And it's Ryan Corcoran. Is that
Corcoran? Yep.
Corcoran. Okay, perfect. All right. Hey Ryan, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, doing great. Happy Friday. The summer, can't complain.
Cannot complain.
I've been wanting to get you on for a little while now, so I'm glad we could. I know you're about to bring a bunch of knowledge to this show, but before we get into the good stuff, the actionable nuggets, let's just get a little background on you. Everyone loves a good origin story.
Sure. All right. Let's see. I currently live in Rhode Island. I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to school. I did undergraduate studies at UMass Lowell for exercise physiology, and I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. And then I realized I couldn't do the same thing over and over and over again. So I pivoted, and I ended up debating between going to medical school and PA school. And I ended up going to PA school, graduating, getting my master's, and I worked in an ICU for a couple of years. But during all that time in undergrad and in graduate school, I was buying small multifamily property. I bought a duplex. I rented it out, ended up flipping that. Then I bought a 3-family, did the same thing. And then I house hacked a 3-family. And, every time I sold a property or rented a property, I was collecting checks, and I'd walk away with a fat check that was going to be like basically my PA salary when I was done school. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, there's got to be something to this. And so after I graduated PA school, I started to realize that, okay, the bulk of, or the benefit here in multifamily is the more units I can get, the numbers start to look better, the price per unit starts to drop. And so I started to move away from 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and I started getting into 6, 8, 10, 12, and bigger. And so right now I've got 162 doors between New Hampshire, Mass, and Rhode Island. And yeah, man, I'm just they're for the most part, they're all multifamilies. I did just start a flipping business and a wholesaling business as well. So I've got 7 flips and 2 wholesales this month. But yeah, just cranking away.
Wow, busy guy. And
busy.
And how many years did it take you to get to where you like that? What do you say, 165 or something like that?
Yeah, 162. Yeah. So all right. Well, so I started when I was 21. Technically, I'm 27 now, but I didn't really start ramping it up till I was about 25. So I'd say about maybe 3 years or so. I'm almost 28 now, so we'll go 3 years. Yeah.
That's impressive. So like, what's the secrets behind this? Not everyone's taken down that many units in 3 years.
Yeah. Honestly, man, like I just have like an extreme desire, and like I enjoy putting deals together. And so for me, when I was working as a PA, I'd go to work, I'd be doing these 24-hour shifts. I'd be absolutely miserable. I'd be, I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I really kind of cold turkey quit my job, even though I had a good amount of units at that point. But as we all know, rentals don't bring in that much money, right? Like you can't really live off of a rental property. Like they just don't produce enough money. Like if you have cash flow that's like, $1,000 a month, let's say, which is pretty good if you could find a property that cash flows $1,000 a month. When the roof goes, there's 2 years of cash flow gone, right? And so I found it to be a little unrealistic to live off of cash flow. And so then I got into flipping and wholesaling it to really drive capital into the business so I could buy more long-term properties. But yeah, sorry, I just went off on a little tangent there.
No. I agree with you because I did a similar thing where I was in finance. And same thing, I just didn't want to do the same thing over and over again, working for someone else's dream. And I also thought real estate was a way better, or I know it is a way better investment. Personally, I feel that. So I wanted to make the change too, but same thing. Long-term rentals, they can cash flow really nicely 1 month, maybe even the next, but then something can happen, like you said, and it's just gone. So
Yeah.
it is hard to bank on that. And I left my job cold turkey too with rentals and had to take a hit. But like you, I needed to do it. So yeah, continue.
Yeah. It's really, and maybe it's, a topic for a whole nother podcast, but going from W-2 to entrepreneur world it's really a culture shock, really.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was, I didn't spend, I was spending money as a W-2 guy, like I'd go out to eat with my wife, like randomly, and as soon as I stopped doing all of that. And not that I couldn't afford it, but you now don't have a floor underneath you anymore. Like you could literally keep falling down. If you fall, there's no one to catch you versus, in a W-2 world, you go to work, you know what you're supposed to do. If you mess up, whatever, bad on you. And then you show up the next day and you're fine. Right. But in the W-2 world here, in the entrepreneur world and in real estate in particular, you're creating, you can make as much money as you want. Don't get me wrong, but you've got to be creative and every day is different and you're creating all of it. And no one is telling you what to do. No one's teaching you how to do it. And so it's a lot different. I wouldn't change my journey so far. It's going well. And I've met a lot of really great individuals and I've partnered with a lot of great partners that have helped me get to where I'm at.
So I definitely want to talk about the partner thing before, because I think that is extremely valuable and I've done the same. But before we get into that, how have you been creative to get to where you're that unit count in that quick a time?
Yeah. All right. So deal finding is the first step and then creative financing has been the second step. So I've been able to buy most of those off market through direct mail, direct email, cold calling, and then my network. And so really the biggest one of those has been direct mail. Over 100 of those 162 units have come from direct mail.
Wow.
And almost all the flips have come from direct mail. And then the rest have really come from cold calling, one from direct email, and then some from networking. But I haven't really used the MLS that much because as most people, as you're looking for deals and you're trying to analyze them on the MLS, none of them work. Right? Maybe a couple of them here and there, and then you're getting a bidding war and it ends up not working. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, how can I find really good deals and continue to scale this multifamily business, sustainably and scalably, if that's even a word. And so I decided I was going to pursue the off-market game, and I've done what I can to perfect it, and it's worked out well so far. So yeah, direct mail has been huge. Cold calling has landed a good amount as well. Network, and I've done a couple of direct emails as well, which is
awesome.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that aren't too familiar with it, what is direct mail, and like what are the steps to do it for those that aren't familiar?
So direct mail is honestly, most of the major companies that you hear of, like Amazon, Walmart, they all do this. And, you get postcards in the mail and they buy lists just like I would as a real estate investor. And so the steps are you go on ListSource or PropStream and you basically download a list of properties, plug in your criteria, it spits out a list for you. You can have that list scrubbed to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And then you hire a company like Open Letter Marketing or whoever, there's a bunch of them out there, to basically send the letters for you. And from there, you have to have a CRM in place, because as these leads start to come in, you have to have a place to input the data. And then after you input the data, you have to have a follow-up process. And so an automated follow-up process has been huge, because if you're sending 10,000 letters a month and you're getting a bunch of calls back, you're going to forget about properties that were maybe warm leads or not that great at the time. But 3 months later, they could be a deal, right? So
what are you using for your for that?
So I'm using something called Pipe Drive. It's like $100 a month. It's nothing crazy. It's really designed for wholesalers, and I'm really not a wholesaler at heart, but it's got the process perfectly laid out for me. So it works really well.
Yeah, and what's not measured is not managed, and what's not managed, you're gonna lose. So.
I hold on 1 second. That's what I'm talking about. Let me move my friggin' dogs.
All right, you're good.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Go. Oh man. All right. Let's do it. Don't worry about it. You're all good. Sorry about that, bro.
No, you're good. All right, let's pick up. So you use PropStream for your CRM, and then how does that work? So you got an incoming call. I'm sure you would probably remove that person from your original list, and then you input it somewhere into your CRM.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So yeah, so PropStream to pull the list, and then I use Pipedrive as a CRM. So I'll take that master list that I created, and then
Yeah.
when I get a call from somebody, I'll remove them from that master list and I'll put them into the CRM as a warm lead, hot lead, whatever it is. And I write a blurb about what the conversation was, and then I'll have it automated. So every time I input a lead into the CRM, I have an automation set up. So as soon as it gets inputted in, I automatically have a 3-month follow-up for that person. And so what that does is it pings me 3 months to the day from when I inputted it to, hey, follow up on 228 West School Street, right? And so then I'll go in, I'll look at it, and I'll be like, all right, what was that conversation about? What was the seller's name? What was the motivation? Like, what type of property is it? And then, I follow up with them, either a letter, a call, whatever it is. And yeah, so that's how the process has worked. And now I have a team to do that for me, because as you can imagine, if you're sending a bunch of letters, 10,000 letters out, and you're getting hundreds of phone calls and hundreds of leads, it's impossible for you to do it yourself.
Right. So how often do you send out that 10,000?
Yeah, so I would say I do about 10,000 a month, and it's not always the same. It's not always the same group of people, because I'm, like I said, I buy multifamily, I buy flips, I'm doing large multis, I'm just doing different things. So it's always, whatever they call it. I'm always adjusting it, right? So I'm never sending the exact same list. Like, I don't think I've ever sent the exact same list. Now those people are going to be on that list again from, different criteria, but I might change, like, for example, if I'm looking for 5-unit properties, like 5 to 10 unit properties, I might adjust the square footage up to maybe 3,000 square feet, right? To make sure that I'm weeding out like a all 1-bedroom apartment building. And so the people on the other list may still be on this new list, but it's just a little bit more of a niche, more targeted list.
So if you don't mind sharing, what might you put on a letter to, let's say, a multifamily owner?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got 2 approaches to this, and it totally depends on who and what type of owner you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach a multifamily owner that is like a mom and pop individual owner, it's, they've owned it for a while, maybe 30 years, or they inherited the property and they don't really know what to do with it. I'm sending a letter that's likely handwritten. So like they have auto pen stuff. So it's likely a handwritten letter. Dear so-and-so, my name is Ryan Corcoran. Very, very, very simple. I'm interested in your property located here. If you're interested, please give me a call back. Very simple, nothing crazy, but handwritten envelope, handwritten return. Everything looks handwritten. It looks like that letter is designed to go just to that person. That has worked phenomenally for individual owners. Now, when you're trying to reach for example, like a 30-unit apartment complex, the likelihood that it's an individual owner becomes a lot less. There's a less percentage that person is like, a 80-year-old guy. It's probably a company or a business or a couple partners together. And so for those, I tailor them more professionally. So I've got a logo on it. It's all printed. It's a little bit longer. It's saying, hey, I can close pretty quickly. I've got X amount of experience. And if you're not interested, I'd love to set up a phone call anyways, just to talk about what you've been able to do. And so I get a lot of phone calls that way. From professional letters as well. That's really cool. It really depends on who you're trying to target.
I think that's the biggest takeaway here is you got to take the time to tailor it to the right end user per se. So no logo on the mom and pop, more just, hey, I'm Ryan trying to grow my portfolio.
Correct.
Selling. And then to the more institutional guy, if we want to call him that, it's logo, more professional. That's awesome. And I think we should all take note. And now the question that I think a listener may have is like, Ryan, why take all this time to go through all of this, the mailers, running the list, the mailers, fielding calls, putting it in your CRM. Mm-hmm. Why not just go to the MLS?
All right. This is why, because let's just say, I'll give you an example. I just bought a 10-unit property in Laconia, New Hampshire for $600,000. The property is probably worth almost $1 million as is. Okay. And so if I were to list that property on the MLS for, let's say, 900, or it would be listed maybe for 900, 899, 900, 925, something around there. Yeah. There's a $250,000, $300,000 equity swing by putting in the extra work to go direct to seller. And so although it's not cash in the bank when you're buying that property, we all know when you make money when you buy, right? And so I technically just added 250 to 300 grand to my net worth from one property doing direct to seller marketing. that would take me 10 properties to get to on the MLS. And so now you put that at scale and you're sending 10,000 letters a month and you can lock up 3, 4, 5 deals a month. You can see how quickly you can, grow your net worth. Not to mention the cheaper you get them, the more cash flow you're going to have at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I don't see any downsides to direct mail. I mean, direct to seller. I will say it's a lot of work. You have to be extremely persistent. You have to be able to get slapped in the face, yelled at, basically being told no 1,000 times, and just not let it get to you and just continue doing it. I will say for somebody who doesn't have the appetite for that much work, the MLS is actually a really good place to go. And the reason I say that, or at least using a real estate agent, the reason I say that is because when you're doing direct to seller, no one's teaching you contracts. No one's teaching you, what you have for contingencies. You have to learn all that on your own, which makes you a very good investor. But if you're somebody who has a full-time job, it might be a little difficult to jump in and do full-time direct mail, cold calling, trying to do direct to seller marketing, because if you get a deal, you need to know how to put that together and basically act as a real estate agent as well, which is a whole nother profession, right? Yep. And so I think real estate agents are huge and very important, and they're great for people who need that streamlined experience when they're buying property.
Yeah, for sure. And I always close the show with something along the lines of, easy doesn't pay well. And I think this just proves that even more, Yeah. What you put into it is what you get out of it. So it's something that I personally I've done a little bit, but it's something I know I need to pick up, especially in this market where we can find some solid opportunities when there still seems to be a lot of competition.
I have nothing negative to say on going direct to seller other than it takes a lot of time. So just be ready to devote time and massive energy into it. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, what does that look like when you get that call and it's, hot lead? Are you going like immediately setting up an appointment to go look at the property? Like, just walk us through that.
Yeah. So it's a tough question to answer because every single call is different. So, there's some where I know right away whether or not I'm going to be able to lock it up for a good price. And for those ones, I'll say, hey, listen, I can do this price. I can sign a contract today and I'll do a walkthrough and I'll waive everything else just because I know based on the purchase price. I haven't even seen the building yet, but I know the market. I know the purchase price per unit. I know what the rents, like I know exactly what I'm buying. But on ones where, let's say the going rate is $100,000 a unit. I typically buy things 20 to 25% off. And so if somebody says they want $90,000 per unit for their building and the going rate is $100,000 and I know that I need to buy it at $80,000, I think I'm close enough there where I'll set up an appointment with him and walk through the property, and I will do my best to say, okay, I'm not an agent. You're not going to get charged an agent fee. So let's drop that down. Okay, maybe now it's $87,000 a unit, right? And then, okay, we're walking through it. I'm building rapport with the seller. They're starting to like me. They like the fact that I'm young and I'm trying to grow a portfolio. I'm being honest with them. I'm telling them everything I do, and maybe I can get them down a couple more thousand, right? And then, so you see how you can start to you can really manipulate. You are in control with off-market real estate versus you are not with the MLS, because typically if a property is posted on the MLS, they're trying to just get the highest price they can. And while in off-market, don't get me wrong, they're trying to get probably the best price they can. You are able to work with them a lot more, and there's no middleman. So it's really just you and the seller hashing out different ways, and there's no ceiling for creativity, which I really like. I mean, I've done everything from seller financing, hard money, private money, conventional, merging the four together, seller holdback, seller credit, you name it. And I've purchased probably 5 or 6 deals without a single penny. Literally no one's money. I mean, the seller's money.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. But in terms of how conversations go, like they really do differ each time. And I would say that for the ones that I go on appointments for, it's got to be somewhat close to what I'm looking to buy it at. The location has to be right. And if it's not, then I'll usually put them on a follow-up or a drip. So every 3 months I'll follow up with them and see how they're feeling at that point. So
it's all in the follow-up. So you may have just answered this, but I feel like the listener's next question would be, Ryan, why would a seller want to sell below market?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like I'll give you an example. I just recently bought a 6 unit property in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and I was actually a flip. And I did zero work to this property, and I bought it. We bought it for 425. We turned around the next day and sold it for 625. And the reason I was able to buy this for 425 is because when I had sent this guy a letter, he called me back. He said, "Yeah, I think it's probably worth, around 500." And I know that it's probably worth, okay, closer to 600. And so I went on the appointment, like I was talking about before. I'm like, yeah, I could probably lock this up. So I walked through the property. It needed some work. The rents weren't that good. But more importantly, I bonded with the guy over sports. I was bonding with the guy over work. We were walking down the street talking about buildings. And the next thing he goes, I really want to sell this property. I don't want to put it on the market. I want to avoid the headache of having my tenants disturbed. I need money for April 1st because my family has an issue with blah, 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 right? I'm not going to get into the details on it, but essentially he was pouring info into me and we had just met, right? And so when I analyzed the deal, I said, listen, man, like the best I can do, a cash offer with no contingencies is 425. And he was like, man, that's like 75 grand less than I actually wanted to sell it for. But he's like, if you can close this in like 3 weeks, then we've got a deal. Because like I said, on April 1st, I need the funds. And I was like, yeah, deal. Right. So that's just an example of how a conversation can go. And then they don't all go like that. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if you do the math, right? I mean, for the amount of work I did for that one property, and while it was a good amount of work, that pays for like 7 years of direct mail. Just that one property. Like that pays for my marketing for like, it's crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. It just goes to the point of, one, find a pain point, but two, really try to build a relationship. And I always, stress. So when I'm going to commercial brokers, it's always, get them to talk, just get them to talk about themselves, what they love. Mm-hmm. And then, you might not even get too many words in compared to them, but at the end of the day, they love you because, you just got them to talk about themselves and what they love. And it goes a long way.
Real quick, there's 2 books that I really recommend people read if they want to get into direct to seller marketing. It's called Trump Negotiations, which it's like a Donald Trump book. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, you should read the book because it talks about how it was written by, I think it was his assistant or something. But it's basically how he negotiated deals and how he was able to put deals together that nobody else was able to do. And it teaches you tactics. And then the other one's called Never Split the Difference.
I just bought that book.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the guy, but dude, that book is unbelievable. It's like everything in there resonates with me from doing direct to seller because every conversation is mutually beneficial for everybody. Like that's the goal, right? And so as soon as you realize that, you can start doing creative things to help both people. And yeah, it's awesome. So if that's like a prerequisite to get into direct to seller, reading those 2 books.
I love it, man. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm excited to read that book. Or let's talk about the second step you're talking about, which is creative financing. What are you actually doing to take these deals down?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on what the deal is, but so ideally, the best way to do this, because I like to use the BRRRR method, which if you guys don't know, it's essentially we buy a really undervalued property, we go in and we rehab the property, and then we rent the property, we refinance it, pull back the money out that we spent on the down payment and the rehab, and we just keep recycling the same capital. And so BRRRR offers a really creative way, initially, right? Because technically you're leaving, as little to no money left in the deal when you're done the deal. Mm-hmm. So my thought process when I was starting was, well, why don't I raise that money from somebody else and then I can pay them back? And if I can't pay them all back, I'll give them a little bit of ownership in the deal. And so I started to just basically raise capital. This is probably, 3 years ago when I was starting, I was raising 100 grand here, 50 grand here, 10 grand here, and using it for down payments. And then some of the loan products that they offer nowadays are, with commercial lending is you can do 100% rehab is covered, right? Yep. So I'm coming out of pocket with nothing. Literally, I'm paying, $500 here, maybe a couple $1,000s here. Like you do need some money, and you do need money to close the transactions, but you can use other people's money to do that. And I think that was a huge barrier in my brain to overcome because then I was able to combine, a 75% LTV loan with 25% of private equity. A private loan from anybody, friends, family, other investors, and you pay them back at an interest only, which the cash flow pays for. Yeah. And then when you're done, you refinance that, you pay back them that initial debt, and now you own this asset that is now cash flowing and you have 25% equity left over. And so that's my favorite way of doing a BRRRR. I've used other strategies like 100% seller financing, seller credits. I really like hard money. And a lot of people think hard money is really risky. And right now, I think it's probably pretty risky, but I still do it, especially for flips. You can find lenders that will do 90 to 95% of LTV, and you bring 5% down. They fund all the rehab. And at the end of the day, you could raise private money for that 5 to 10% and really be into these flips for no money. And so, yeah, hard money, private money, and seller financing have been huge.
No, that's phenomenal. And if you don't mind sharing one of the deals you said where you literally brought like nothing.
Sure. Okay.
Nothing to the table.
Yeah. This is a good one. So let's go back to the 10 unit that I bought in Laconia
Yep.
like 6 months ago or something. It was a direct to email. So I pulled a list, I had it scrubbed, and then I skip traced the list. And so skip tracing gives you emails, phone numbers. And I decided, hey, why not? I'm going to email these people. So I sent out a generalized email, and one guy responded to me. And he was like, I'm not opposed to holding a note on it. When I said, are you open to holding a note? First, we started at 800 grand, and then it was 700 grand. And then I walked the property, and it was like, okay, listen, man, like it's gonna be 600 grand, needs a lot of work. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'll hold the note. He's like, give me 40 grand down. And so first of all, 40 grand on 600 is like, what's that, like 4 or 5%? I don't even know. It's like a very small amount that you can't even do normally. So typically anybody would be like, well, that's pretty good. You know, you're going to have a really high ROI on that because you're not putting much money down. So then I said, okay, well, I've got a bunch of other properties going on. I don't really want to sink 40 into this deal because we also had a stipulation where I had to hold the property for 5 years. I couldn't just sell it immediately. And I agreed to that term. And so I pulled in an equity partner, and the equity partner brought the 40K. And so that guy owns 50% of the building. I own 50% of the building. I brought $0 down. I did the work and I'm operating it. He brought the 40 and I'm in it for actually $0. Like I didn't pay for anything. And so, yeah. And now the thing makes like $5 grand a month. Right. So
amazing.
yeah. And that's one deal. It's one example. There's so many more. But yeah, it's awesome, man. There's a lot. Creative financing, especially if you're new in the game, is probably top 3 things you need to master. Right. Because otherwise you're limited to your own capital. Yeah, you run out of money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the best way to scale for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, minus your sweat equity, you have infinite returns coming out of that property now. So
exactly,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So were you primarily focused just throughout New England?
So I do things with partners and a lot of partners. I love partnerships. I think partnerships are awesome. They all haven't gone amazing, but I would say probably 90% of them have gone really well. And the 10% that didn't go so well, just learn from them. All right. If you you might lose a little here. This partnership might not go well. In my brain, it's a wash. I learn from it. I move on. I don't make the same mistake next time, and I keep rolling. And so when I'm purchasing in like northern New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, Massachusetts, I've got like a core group of people that I partner with. And so I typically find the deals, and then it's either one guy or maybe like 2 or 3 of us, and we'll all go in on them together. In Rhode Island, I also partner with people, but a lot of them are myself because I live here now, right? So I've built up enough, equity in properties that I'm able to basically I'm doing more myself down here in Rhode Island. But because I'm infrastructure with partners up in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, I'm buying more up there with partners. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really have a heavy focus on one of the markets. I guess you could say I'm more of a deal focused guy. As long as location's okay and it makes sense and it's not a declining population and it looks pretty stable, good job spread, all that kind of stuff. I'm a deal focused guy. I'm not necessarily like I need to buy in Waltham, Massachusetts, right? Like I don't do that. It's gotta make sense, but as long as the deal makes sense.
Hey, a deal's a deal, right?
Yeah.
So partners, are they primarily just bringing money? Do they have other type of, what are you utilizing or leveraging these partners for?
So, like I said, I'm usually the deal finder.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm not, and sometimes somebody else brings the deal, and they're using me for capital or they're using me for experience. And so, everybody talks about it. Breaker Pockets, Brandon Turner, and everybody who's, all these big guys, they always talk about it. You need to have the knowledge, experience, and the hustle, right? And so typically it comes down to that, like who's going to operate the deal and hustle the deal, who's going to bring the capital, and then who's going to actually find the deal and have the knowledge base of that to actually know it's a deal. And And so it typically falls into one of those three categories. And so if I'm personally looking for a partner, I guess it's going to depend. If it's a long-term hold, I'm looking for somebody who's going to bring capital to the deal, because I'm trying to, like, I could personally use my own capital, but as we all know, you're going to run out and you're going to tap out of capital, right? And so for me, I'm in growth mode. I'm trying to scale. And so I'm trying to pull money from here and engineer capital this way. And like, I'm just trying to do everything I can to continue to scale. And so for me, I'm looking, it's more of a money guy. But for somebody else who's coming to me, it's probably a money guy for them, right? Or maybe, hey, I have this deal. Do you want to partner on it so I can leverage your knowledge on how to operate stuff like this? So yeah, there's tons of different ways to do it though.
Yeah. And how are you finding these partners?
Yeah, so I've never really set out to say I'm going to find partners.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on networking, and I think that getting in the room with people who are doing things that are way bigger than you, you're just surrounding yourself with future partners by doing that. I told the story on another podcast. I'll say it again here, man. Like, this has been huge for me. When I moved here to Rhode Island about a year ago, I joined a mastermind, and I told everybody I wanted to hit 250 units by the end of 2022. And they were all like, yeah, it's a pretty good goal. And I was the first one to go. The guy next to me goes, yeah, I want to make $1 million a month. And I was like, pretty good. The guy after that, I want to make 2.5 million by the end of this month. And it was like the 15th of January, or of like August last year. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, these guys are blowing me out of the water, right? But I felt like an ant. But since then, all 5 of those guys I have partnered with now on deals. One of them I wholesaled them a deal. The other one I'm building 10 triplexes with. The other one I'm doing a couple flips with, right? And so just by getting in that room, I just made partners, right? And so I really think if you're asking yourself, like, how do I find partners? That's not the right question. The question should be, how do I network, and how can I get in the room with people just doing things that I want to do? And by doing that, as long as you can bring value, whether it's the deal, money, or knowledge, you'll have partners everywhere.
Yeah, man, masterminds have changed my life. So I highly recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
It's just gets you to level up, and it, like you said, and it also just gives you a roadmap of like what's possible, because you see the people ahead of you. And I've also realized it's kind of just like a therapy group, right? Because it's hard to relate people that aren't on this type of journey, like small business owner, entrepreneur. It's just hard to relate with those people that aren't doing that. But with the people that are, it's really easy. And
because there's not that many of them, right? Like 90% of the people you meet throughout the day aren't thinking the same way as you, and they don't have the same thought process as you. So when you say something, or when you're listening to people talk, you're just like shaking your head. Like, in your head, you're just like, what? Like, what? I can't relate to this anymore, right? You need to get around people who are not only in the same realm as you, but doing things way bigger than you, like way, way bigger. Like, I don't even mean like getting around someone who owns a couple triplexes or a couple 3 families or 4 families. I mean, getting around people who own thousands of units, right? Yep. That's who you should be trying to get to if you're trying to grow your multifamily portfolio.
Yeah. So talking about that, what is your long-term goal? Where does Ryan want to be?
So I always pivot my goal. Like, I had a goal, dude. Every goal I've set, I've just crushed, because I've found that, like, goals are great, and I like having an overarching goal, but I'm much more goal oriented when it comes to like process. So I set goals like, all right, I'm going to send 10,000 letters this month, or I'm going to get into a new meetup this month, or I'm going to partner with somebody I haven't partnered with before. It doesn't matter what the deal is, right? And so I'm always able to crush those overarching goals, because the actions I'm taking are just way more significant than what's actually going to get me there. And so long-term vision. Yeah. So long-term vision, I don't, everyone has like a unit count number. I thought I did for a while, and then I realized, like, it's not really about how many units you have. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's more about the quality of the units, how much money it's bringing in. Is it creating the life that you want to live? And so for me, it's growing my multifamily business, hiring that out, stepping away from it, having it keep running, growing a flipping business, stepping away from it, having it keep running. And so, so those are really my goals. I don't have a unit number count anymore. I don't have like a flip count number anymore.
No, that's great. Our fellow buddy, Axel, him and I talk about the whole unit count thing and how funny it is. Cause one, people talk about the units. You don't know what percentage of the units they own, right?
Correct.
And two, like you said, you don't know the quality. You don't know actually the cash flow. That's the important part. What's the net every month? And then to your point, keep going.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, and right now, because I'm surrounded by guys that are making just a ridiculous amount of money, or at least to me they are. To some people, they're making nothing. But to
Yeah,
somebody making 10 million bucks a month to me is like, oh, like not even just next level. That's like next level, right? And so my immediate goals are, how can I drastically increase my income, right? And so I'm just exploring options and partnering with people and doing things that are really just like from now to January, just being open with everybody, from now to January, I've like 8x my income just by getting around people who are making stupid money, right? And so that's sort of like, and that's my goal right now. That would probably change. Like I'll probably get to a point where like, okay, why, like it's not worth it. Like why am I making this much money for no reason, right? But yeah, so it's always evolving. And I think that's somebody, you know, take it from me, you should never just set a goal and be dead set on that goal. I think you should always have an evolving goal. And also like the market changes, right? Like if your goal is to burr 200 units in a couple of years and the market starts to drop, well, burr isn't really going to make a whole hell of a lot of sense if you're going to be refinancing at a higher interest rate with a lower value, or you're not going to be able to pull your money out. So I think you need to be able to pivot and really be able to evolve that goal.
Yeah, and I really like your point to focusing on the process too. I remember when I realized that was like the light bulb moment for me. It really switched everything because you could say, like, let's just say you want to raise $5 million in the next 3 months to take down deals. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great, but like, where's that coming from? Like,
how are you going to raise that?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like, it's great to say it, but like, what is the actual process to do it? Right. So the goal should be, I'm going to reach out to 10 different guys I've never spoken to before and tell them what I'm doing and what my goal is. Right. So now you have 10 potential investors. Right. I totally agree, man. I think it's super powerful.
Yeah. Because I used to be like that. I think like most people, you just put a goal and be like, all right, let's do it. Like, no, like it's a whole reverse engineering. Yeah. Like when I first started out, really focusing on the commercial stuff, it was like, all right, I need to build like broker relationships. Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to take down like X number of deals, X number of units. Okay. Well, that means I need to reach out to 5 new brokers a week and follow up with 2 existing brokers a week and do that for this many weeks. Yeah. And then I'll, track that. Did I hit that goal each week? And that's what will get you to that unit number. It's not just this unit number.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. I completely agree. And it's really hard to do that because when it's really easy it's actually kind of easy to set an overarching goal, right? Like you could say like, all right, I want to have 30 units by the time I'm 30, right? And like, and you can wake up the next day and just continue to do what you did the day before, and just, I still want to have 30 units by 30, but like, are you actually doing anything to get there? Right. And it's, taking the first step is really hard because you don't actually see what that first step is until you actually start doing things. And that's why I think having a process-oriented goals are much more important.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, man. Well, this has been a great conversation. I don't know if you have much more time, but
yeah, man, I get whatever time you want, man. I got till 12, so whatever you want to do.
All right, I could go forever. So what are some of the projects you have, if you don't mind, just talking about the projects you have going on right now?
Yeah, I've got one that's like really interesting because I've never done it before, and I spoke a little bit earlier. It's a development deal, and so we're building 8 triplexes in Taunton, Massachusetts, and nice. The land came. We were buying the land off market from a letter I had sent. I didn't even mean to send. This is the other thing. Like, I get callbacks from people about property. They're like somebody called me about an air hanger. Like I've gotten car wash call. Like, and I don't mean to send them to those, right? But so this happened to be one of those. It was, hey, I got vacant land in Taunton. I'm actually a developer in Taunton, and I've got this land, but I'm an older guy. He's an older guy. He's like, I just want to offset this stuff. He's like, if you want to come by and take a look at it, let's do it. He's like, you can probably fit 2 or 3 duplexes on the lot. And I'm like, all right, 2 or 3 duplexes. Like, we're buying the land for $275. I'm like, probably makes sense. Probably make a couple $100,000 split between if I bring a partner in, right?
Yeah.
So we walk the land, and I bring Mark. Mark is my partner on it. He's the guy who's done development. And so we're walking the land and we're looking around. And we're like, this is massive. Like it feels way bigger than 2.5 acres. And so we said, yeah, all right, we'll go forward with it. So we started to get the engineering done, and we went to the town, and they were like, no, you can fit way more than that on there. Right? So essentially, we have permits and plans for 8 triplexes. Wow. The land was $225,000.
4x.
And if you just exactly. And if you just do a little bit of math, it costs about $400,000 to build a triplex. And then each one of those individual units inside of one single triplex sells for $400 or $450 per. Right. Wow. So we're talking, wipe one of them away for the building of it. So now you're talking $800 to $900,000 per triplex times 8. Okay, and so now the numbers are enormous, right? And so this is a whole new world to me, development. Now, granted, it's going to take almost 2 years to finish the entire process.
Right.
But yeah, I'm super excited about this opportunity because I've never done something like this before, and I'm leveraging Mark because he's done it a handful of times. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like we just spent $42,000 on a survey, and I'm like, what? How much? We spent $42,000 on a survey? Like I've never done it before, right? So, but I'm leveraging him, and we're doing it together. It's exciting. It's cool.
That's awesome, man. And that's the beauty of real estate, like leverage. Like, yeah, obviously from a financial standpoint, right? You can leverage to buy more, but also just leveraging other people's knowledge and know-how. It just
absolutely
gets you to your goal so much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when I realized that, like that I didn't have to do it on my own, things just changed. Like it seems, it's like the ego thing at the beginning. I don't know if you experienced that, but you just feel like I got to do this all on my own. I can do it. And then.
Yeah, I think to a degree it's good because it forces you to like learn, right? You learn how to do things, but you'll quickly realize that no one in this business has ever made money and been successful and freed up their time and done it on their own. Like you literally cannot do it. You can't do it. So.
Yeah, the whole self-made millionaire thing or self-made whatever is a joke to me.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, where can people find you?
So social media and I have a very bad relationship. I have done zero social media whatsoever, but I've been talking to a bunch of people who are not only making money from social media, but their businesses have exploded. And so I'm starting to do that. So I'm on Instagram at RJ Corcoran08, TikTok, RJ Corcoran08. I made a YouTube channel. And I can send you links. You can put them in like the show notes, whatever. But but yeah, if you're interested in learning what I'm doing, following along, I've got a newsletter as well. So feel free to reach out, and I can't promise I'll respond to every single person, but I'll do my best if you reach out, and I'd love to have you follow along. So, man,
I'm the same way. I'm so bad with social, but I see the big benefit from it. And same, I've been talking to people too, and they've shared some tips. I just got to actually do it, right?
Implement it, yeah.
No, but I see you posting. I see you riding your bike, man. And anytime you're up here, let me know. I'll go for a ride with you.
Let's do it, man. Sounds good.
But yeah, man, this has been huge. Before I let you go, there's usually 2 questions I ask at the end.
Sure.
And the first is why multifamily? Why real estate in general to kind of pursue the life that you want? Yeah,
that's a really good question because like you can do it in any area, right? You can start a plumbing business, an electrical business, a roofing company. It doesn't even have to be in building real estate. It could be anywhere. E-commerce. I don't know, but I'm not a handy person at all. So to answer the question, why real estate, I really got attracted to the passive income idea when I was looking for ways to create money, create extra income. And I also found that once I realized I could start leveraging other people's money to buy assets, which you cannot do in any other, you can't really do that like initially, right? If you go buy stocks, like at least from scratch, like you can leverage stocks once you have them, but to buy actual stocks, it's very difficult to say, hey man, let me borrow 50 grand. I'm going to buy all these stocks with it. If it goes up, I'll give you back your 50 and I'll hold. Like it's a lot more difficult to do that.
Right. And it's way more volatile too. So you can blow yourself up real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's predominantly why I chose real estate. And I also had an uncle who had owned a construction company. And so he was like an early mentor for me on just basically like, hey, you can make a lot of money in real estate and you can live the life you want. Right. And I was watching him travel all over the world at a young age. And so I was like, I want to do that. And so that's why I jumped into real estate.
That was a similar thing to me, man. I was, towards the end of my finance career, I knew I needed to make a change. And I was like, all right, what is it going to be? And I, instead of just like focusing on the career, I focused on like the lifestyle I wanted first.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at other people that I knew were successful and living that type of life that I wanted. Yeah. And it came down to 2 things. They had money, they were successful, and 2, they had a flexible calendar, and they all did real estate. So I'm like, and I already liked real estate. I knew that was going to be my end goal anyways, but I was like, let's just do it. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. For me, like the underlying thing for me when I was, when I grew up, my parents worked, 9 to 5, 9 to 9 jobs for God's sakes, right? Like they were gone early in the, like my dad got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd go to the gym. He'd be at work for 4:30. He wouldn't get home till 5:30, go to bed at 8 p.m., right? Yeah. And so I'm like, dude, like
like, how the hell you do it? Like, I could not do it. I couldn't do it. Like, it's just awful. And, you know, my mom worked from home, which was great, but she was also nonstop working on the phone all day, like just nonstop. And so for me, I was like, all right, I need to find a way to not do any of that. Like, I want to be able to work where I want, wherever I want, with who I want, travel when I want, buy what I want. Like, and so ultimately it came down to real estate, because I think for any average individual, real estate is the easiest way to become wealthy.
Couldn't agree more. All right. Last question. And since you started young, this, you know, might be a little different answer, but if you had a time machine, you know, if you go back in time, like Back to the Future, you had the DeLorean, you could go back. What would you tell, like, one piece of financial advice to your younger self? Like, what would that be?
Yeah, I have gotten this question actually a few times. Like, if you go back, could you change anything? Right. And for me, from a financial standpoint, I would have told myself at like 17 years old, when I was about to graduate high school, that it's okay that you don't know what you want to do. Don't just, you know, it's okay that all you want to do is play sports, and that, you know, you're just going to go to college because that's what people tell you to do. I think I would have explored more of the trades. I probably would have went to, like, you know, gotten my Volt license or a plumbing license, and not gone to school. And I, you know, it actually kind of hurts me to say that, because I got a lot of friends from going to PA school and working with doctors and medicine and everything. And a lot of them are my partners, so I wouldn't change anything. But I think if I were to go back and tell myself, you know, hey, maybe you should look into starting a business in the trades at a young age. I think that probably would have jump started me, and I wouldn't have had debt when I started. And, you know, it would have been a different situation. Would it have worked? I don't know. But that's probably what I would have done differently.
Man, I like that answer. You know, I haven't heard that. I really like that, because it's true, having a skill and a trade. And I talk about that too, like the whole college thing. To your point, it was great to build that network, but you know, we won't go there. We'll leave that.
We'll just leave that.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I'm glad you could take some time out of your busy day to jump on here.
Yeah, man, super appreciative. It's been a lot of fun. And if anybody reach out, love to chat.
Yeah, you guys
help
should.
Anybody can
Connect to them, and we definitely will stay in touch.
All right, sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, thanks for checking in. Catch you on the next one.